Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Nigeria is on the brink of another industrial dispute in the university system, except goodwill prevails. The federal government has insisted that university lecturers will not be paid for work not done, in line with a no work, no pay policy. At a media briefing in Abuja, the Minister of Education, Adamu, said the half salary paid to members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, is justified, insisting that governments will not pay for the months the lecturers were on strike. Now let's share the story by TVC News senior correspondent Femi Akonde with you.
The federal government is sticking to its gun and insisting on the no work, no pay policy it has adopted against members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Government says there will be no salary for the university lecturers in the period which they did not work. The federal government's position comes despite the protest by members of ASU to express their dissatisfaction with the invocation of the no work, no pay policy of the federal government.
Has been called off.
The Minister of Education, Adamu, re-emphasized the government's position on Wednesday after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja, when he fielded questions from State House correspondents.
The strike has been called off, and the government has paid them what is due to them. Well, I think that's the position of the government, that it is not going to pay anyone for work not done. And they only did, I think, the number of days that they were paid.
The minister also denied claims that the federal government was planning to casualize university workers.
But if you know the meaning of a casual worker, it is impossible to make a university lecturer a casual worker.
The Federal Executive Council also approved more than 5 billion naira for printing of sensitive and non-sensitive materials for the National Examination Council, NECO, and another 3.2 billion naira was approved for the perimeter fencing of the Uthman Danfodio University in Sokoto. Council approved more than 2 billion naira for the procurement of operational vehicles for the Federal Road Safety Corps. The special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, disclosed that the contract for the purchase of the vehicles was given to local auto manufacturers. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, so across the world, the right to strike is one of the most cherished possessions of trade unions. I would like to know, what is the implication of this no work, no pay policy by the federal government? MJ?
Honestly, it's like at times I feel probably there is a demon in that Aso Rock that makes the minds of some people very rigid, and particularly very sensitive when it comes to the issue of teachers, because my parents, the two of them, are still alive. My mom and my dad retired as teachers, and I know how passionate they could be. You can see the arrogance with which the Minister for Education is speaking, and Ngige is even worse. See, these people went on strike. It took the intervention of the Speaker of the House of Reps, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, for them to call off the strike. Even after the President gave Professor Adamu, who used to be a lecturer himself, after he gave him a 2-week ultimatum to resolve the crisis, and he couldn't get it done in more than 2 months, took the intervention of Gbajabiamila on the prompt, after a prompt from, of course, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for this truce to be brokered, and now they want to fritter it away. Now, I think we need to let Nigerians know they were paid only half of October, and they stopped paying them since February. So which means March to September, they didn't give them any pay. And you expect these guys to go just fold their arms? Are you telling us that they don't have a right to go on strike after federal government has breached several agreements? And we have lawmakers in the National Assembly there that do next to nothing, and each of them collects a minimum of 30 million per month. So, and you expect this, you don't expect these guys to just fold their arms. And I think it's just arrogance, and nobody should blame ASU when they go on strike again.
All right, so obviously, ASU has accused the federal government of alleged onslaught against intellectualism.
I think that is obvious. It's obvious. It's the action of the government portrays leaders that do not really care about what goes on in the universities or about the education of Nigerian youths. It's as if the federal government does not even know the implication of the strike in the first instance. As a matter of fact, a typical federal university in Nigeria now has lost 2 academic sessions.
Yeah.
So, which means that there are backlogs of candidates that have already gained admission through the UTME who are still at home. In fact, this last admission, I think less than probably 5 or whatever thousand, less than 5% was admitted because only the private universities and some state universities could take in candidates. Now, you are not even thinking about those children, the people that are being affected. You know, we are talking about people that just leave school with high hopes of going to uni, and they are at home. You don't even think about the psychological effects of keeping these people at home for upward of 2 years. I can tell you for free, a colleague, because his daughter, in fact, he was told in private that, look, your daughter can't get admission to UNILAG until 2024. This is after ASU resumed because there is a backlog. Yeah. So that girl now, the father had to be looking for private university, and all of that. So it's a messy situation. When you see a government that reacts the way this government is doing, all you can just conclude is that it's an onslaught, not only against intellectualism, but against the youths of this country. Look, we are talking about give and take here, bargaining and all of that. This is a union that went on strike for 9 good months. This is the worst strike that ASU has ever embarked on because they didn't gain anything from this strike. They gained nothing. Rather, they gained embarrassment. I could say they gained victimization. In fact, everything that is you cannot imagine is what they are going through now. I think the right thing for government to do is just to pay them and let's move on from there. I think that is the best way and the way to peace.
All right, MJ, your final take on this.
Yeah,
what is Olabisi has mentioned some opinion. What's the way out of all of this?
Yeah, I still want to plead with members of the National Assembly, especially probably the Speaker again, and the Senate President to intercede once more and allow reason to prevail by pleading with the federal government. I mean, to ensure that these workers are paid, because I read one of the banners while the UNILAG lecturers were protesting yesterday. You know, they had a protest from the Julius Berger building up to UNILAG gates, where they said it's like a casualization of intellectualism, and that some wrote that Ngige is, while the teachers are teaching the nation, Ngige is cheating the teachers. And I think I want to agree with them, honestly. But I believe, I urge the leadership of the National Assembly and other concerned stakeholders in this nation state called Nigeria to call the federal government to order, because we can't afford another strike. Like she said, we have a backlog of 2 admission sessions now, waiting. The other day, one of the universities matriculated 4,000 students. And ordinarily, they shouldn't take more than 1,500. They have to do combined matriculation. Now, students are writing exams on Saturdays and Sundays, just for in a bid for the lecturers to catch up. I mean, but how do you expect very good products from a crashed academic calendar.
All
So
right.
those are the effects of what the federal government is doing.
All right,
to
thank
the
you very
university
much.
system.
Let's take our next discussion. To nip crime in the bud, the best approach is to be proactive rather than reactive. Following alarm raised about threats to the 2023 elections, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba Alkali, has met with leaders of 18 political parties that will participate in the polls. The meeting, which took place at the force headquarters, Abuja, was convened to avoid electoral violence before, during, and after the elections. Speaking before the meeting went into a closed-door session, Alkali said it is to address threats noticeable in the electoral process before they degenerate. Olabisi.
Well, I think that is very important. From the look of things and what we've been seeing in the past few days, since September 28th, when the space was open for political campaigns, we've witnessed a lot of violence. Now, about 52 cases across 22 states. The other time, Ogun State INEC office was burnt. Osun State INEC office was burnt. And I even discovered an innovation to the bunny. They soak bread in petrol and they just throw it.
Yeah.
And the whole place just, I mean, who are we? Why should we always be like this? Election has not started and we have witnessed that level of violence. So you can just predict that this kind of thing can only go worse except it is nipped in the bud, which I think is what the IG is trying to do. But I also think that beyond that, we need to increase surveillance on the part of the security operatives. And of course, I know that it's very difficult to guard all INEC premises because we don't have such manpower. Unfortunately, we are not making use of technology to fight insecurity. Otherwise, we could, with ordinary CCTV, we could have probably discovered when some of these actions are about to happen. And we could also effect arrest and all of that. Because I think that beyond just talking about it, we need to arrest those who are doing these things and bring them to book. Otherwise, the likelihood of others continuing is higher. But I think it's a right step. But beyond just calling people, we need to be more proactive as per the protection of facilities, INEC facilities.
All right, so MJ, if members of the intelligence and security community have expressed these kinds of fears, how worrisome is the situation?
Yeah, it's quite worrisome, and worrisome in the sense that when the field was opened by INEC on September 28th, the following day, September 29th, the Interagency Consultative Committee invited all the 18 political parties where they all signed a peace accord. It was as if the peace accord was just on paper. The VP was there, candidates of most of the political parties and their chairmen were there, and they were hugging each other as if everything was normal. But then, I mean, like the IGP at that meeting with the major stakeholders in the 18 political parties yesterday, and of course, security agencies, I mean, he identified three main sources of this political violence. I mean, number one being what Dr. Folutili just mentioned, the burning of, I mean, the direct attack on INEC by, I mean, that has been happening in the east, but then they have started in the southwest too, where they attacked Ogun and the INEC office in Ede, Osun State. Now, that's number one. And number two, the inter-party conflict where, of course, APC would fight NNDP or Labour versus PDP, where they will, I mean, supporters will be clashing amongst one another. And the third one, as very, very terrible and there's little or nothing INEC and government has been able to do about that, which is the influence of some governors that will not allow the pasting of posters or banners by some other opposition parties. I mean, that is also, political violence, so to say. It's like you are trying to crowd out others. I mean, where Party A is the ruling party in a particular state, it won't allow other parties to display their out of home material, the one we call billboards and stuff like that, and where they paste posters. In fact, some parties will, some agencies of government will actually particularly tell you that you cannot use billboards in certain routes, in certain areas. So these are the kind of things the IGP mentioned, that we should encourage political tolerance. That is just an election. Elections do happen, but then Yoruba people will say, I mean, you fight with all the tools you have, but in Nigeria,
there are tools.
Yes, there are several tools that they employ.
Unimaginable.
They believe it is part of a political strategy for them to win an election by depriving the opponent the ability to actually sell themselves or to expose themselves. So, but I think they should do it with a little bit more of decorum.
All right, so in the wake of these threats and insecurity generally, some retired military officers have asked the federal government to consider engaging the service of ex-servicemen.
To do what?
To help in the general insecurity in Nigeria, and also because of how important the 2023 general election is.
Well, it's not a bad idea, really. From the look of things, we also know that it's not as if we have enough personnel in the police force, for example, the police that are supposed to be in charge of civil unrest and all of that. But we need to also ask ourselves about the funding for this kind of thing. Did we make provision for that? Because it's not something that you can just do midway. Just say you want to employ retired security people to come and help. It's not, we can't start planning that now, okay? And I don't also think that was included in the budget for 2023. So it's almost like something that is almost impossible to happen,
Majid,
even though it could be a good idea.
The security agencies are already stretched thin. Like, I mean, INEC has been complaining about funding, and if you look at the off-cycle elections, for example, in some cases they deploy 30,000 security personnel into some of these states. Now we are going to have a general election in about 30. I mean, of course, it's going to be in all the 36 states. However, like 6 states won't be having governorship elections because they are off-cycle. States like Anambra, Ekiti, Kogi, Oshun, I think Bayelsa. So they'll be having off-cycle elections. But the presidential election, senatorial, House of Reps and House of Assembly is all over the country. So even if you look at 20,000 policemen in 36 states, we are talking of about 720,000 minimum. Now, do we have 720,000 security personnel? That is including the civil defense, immigration,
And other sister agencies.
Other sister agencies. Of course, the military don't get involved in election at the polling units. They only stay at the background in case there is a need for them to. So I think what the ex-servicemen are saying is that, yes, there might be a need to recall them, but then would INEC have that provision to pay for them? Because elections are quite expensive. Because all these men...
I think they are charging the federal government directly, not INEC.
Yeah, well, it's INEC, it is INEC that will deploy them. It is not the federal government. Well, INEC will make a request through those sister agencies, sister security agencies on election. I mean, they have a team. But we are talking of the resources now. I think we need to get to that level where, in Nigeria, where elections are not held on Saturdays, where everything will shut down. In Ghana, they do their elections on weekdays. I mean, they have evolved to that level, and the level of violence has reduced. But it's only in Nigeria that you see a lot of thugs and other urchins being armed for the purposes of elections. And after the elections, these guys, they let loose. So I think our politicians need to really be careful in how they take these elections as a do-or-die affair.
All right, Olabisi, let me have your final take.
Yeah, anyway,
Majorly because this looks like a recycled issue in the country. Every 4 years, INEC continues to complain about violence instigated mostly by politicians.
Well, the good news is that the INEC chairman himself has said that, because I asked him this question personally at a forum, and he said that, well, that usually they even find it better when they are conducting the general election than the off-cycle elections, that at least everybody will be busy in their constituency, unlike the off-cycle elections where they all concentrate on winning a state or all of that. So I think the security situation may not be too violent on a general note if what the police, the IG is doing and what the peacemakers are saying, I mean, those who signed the truce and all of that, if they really live up to the...
All right. All right, thank you very much. The countdown to the 2023 elections has begun, and we are 99 days to the commencement of the polls. As such, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has reassured Nigerians that the elections will be technology-driven to avoid any human error. Speaking at an interactive session on the topic, why INEC beavers, IREV, are critical to the 2023 general election, the National Commissioner in charge of Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye, said the bimodal voter accreditation system and INEC results viewing portal will be deployed for the elections. Guys, it's widespread opinion that for us to really have or improve the reliability of our elections, digitization is the way. MJ.
Yeah, I agree with INEC, and I witnessed the use of the beavers and IREV in both the Ekiti and Osun elections, and it was almost seamless. The elections closed from 3 p.m. and the first results started coming in by as early as 30 minutes later. Of course, I logged in into IREV. Individuals can log in into IREV. That's the INEC report portal, result portal. So, however, the beavers machine, for my experience in both Ekiti and Osun, was that, yeah, those were off-cycle elections where the pressure was not too much. For example, in Osun, there are about 3,000 polling points, and they deployed about 500 extra beavers machines. Now, but in nationwide, I think we have about 170,000 voting points. Yeah, because some polling units are divided into, because any polling unit where you have more than 500 voters in densely populated areas, they split it further. So I'm worried about the response time for beavers machines that malfunctions. Then also, we've had instances where the beavers machines, despite the fact that it's both, it's that is bimodal, it captures, can capture your face as well as your fingerprints, and even the QR code on your card. Despite that fact, we still have occasions where all these 4 options fail. And without the beavers, I mean, there is no incident forms again where the initial voting machine fails, then you have an incident form. That one has been eliminated. So because the BVAS machine, immediately you finish voting, when the last person votes, it's transmitting the result of accredited voters into INEC portal. So I expect that, as Festus Okoye said, INEC would have done its homework very well and could have learned. I expect them to have learned from the mistakes of Ekiti and Osun, which of course was about, like I said, about 90%, but those are secluded, localized cases.
Areas.
So I expect that nationwide, they should up their ante and ensure that these machines work perfectly.
All right, so INEC says no going back.
Yeah, that's good. The fact that the incident form has been totally eliminated is really a great advancement in our electoral process, because most of the time when there are complaints, it's just about these incident forms. It's because people, when you have cases of people who are not registered or all of that, and they can easily vote using the incident forms and all of that, underage, double voting and all of that, that has been totally eliminated with the elimination of the incident form. So for me, these BVAS and the BVAS especially is a step forward for INEC, but like he rightly explained, we need to also take into consideration all these factors, especially now that we are dealing with a general election where a lot of these machines are expected to be deployed at the same time. Do we have extra ones that can actually do the work in case there are failures at any point in time? So they need to work on that, because if there are no machines, then it can also, such can lead to agitation that can preempt violence. Because if people are somewhere and they cannot vote and time is going and they think that, they won't be able to vote after the expiration of the voting period, they can be agitated and all of that. So I expect INEC to actually have extra machines. I expect them to know that this is not an off-cycle election. If they could deploy 500 extra when state elections are taking place, I expect them to also have equal number that could be deployed across each state of the federation. They should have done their calculation. And also, when they know that elections do not hold due to failure of these machines, they can also respond by being proactive. If they are going to extend voting in such places or cancel it outright, asking voters to come the following day and all of that. I think that has happened in the past. They should just be proactive even when there are problems, so that we know that nobody will come back to say that, oh, it's because we are not using incident forms.
All right, let's get to the final lap of our program today. The strange concept of Islamization has dogged the 2023 elections due to the same faith ticket of the All Progressives Congress APC. But the party's presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, has dispelled such fear. Tinubu has given an undertaking that he will not pursue any religious or ethnic agenda if elected president of Nigeria in 2023. Speaking at an interactive session with the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, Tinubu said if it is impossible for him to Islamize his home, then he could not Islamize the whole country. Let's share the story by TVC News. Ola Wakon with you.
Have passed, but his decision to tow same-faith tickets has remained a talking point. It was time to set the record straight. Presidential candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, arrives in the CAN Secretariat to have an interactive meeting with the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Abuja.
Review the problems that...
President of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Daniel Oko, says the essence was for the APC presidential candidate to meet minds with the leadership of the Christian community in the country to review and proffer solutions to the various challenges confronting the country.
The idea of this interaction is to come together to review our understanding of the Nigerian crisis of development and governance and collectively find a lasting solution.
The leadership of CAN presented a list of demands and issues which they believe should be looked into by the APC presidential candidate if he becomes the president of Nigeria.
Clear and unambiguous religious neutrality of the Nigerian state.
Asiwaju Bola Tinubu said if elected, his administration will not discriminate against anyone, either based on tribe, religion, or gender.
We have urgent problems that lend themselves not to a Christian or a Muslim solution. We need the best solution. And we need a partnership that will offer the best solution.
While reacting to controversy about the Muslim ticket, he said Senator Kashim Shettima, as his running mate, was the best available choice at his disposal without recourse to religious sentiments.
He is a brilliant man with superior intellectual capacity. He is a studious and detail-oriented, enjoying excellent organizational skill. Shettima fully understands the vital difference between governance and politics.
He assured the leadership of CAN that his office will be opened to them as he promised to look into all the issues raised by the Christian body.
All right, APC presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu was speaking there. Now, he has severally maintained that his reason for picking Kashim Shettima is strategic and not religious.
Yeah, for Asiwaju, I mean, he met with the Guild of Editors about 2 weeks ago, and I was present, and he said it right there, just as he reiterated yesterday, that you are not a candidate for an election, I mean, for the purpose of entertaining everybody. If you want to be entertaining people, then you should be selling ice cream and just allow people to be laughing. But he is in the race to win, and the best combination that could allow him to win is Shettima. It's not about religion. It was said he was not even thinking about religion, just like he told CAN. And also, I think if you look at the dynamics, he's an APC candidate. He knows that because of the way our mind is structured in Nigeria, if Asiwaju picks, quote and unquote, the CAN president as his running mate, he will still not do well in some parts of the country. That is a fact, in the south-south and the southeast. Because whereas if in that part of the country there is a Muslim candidate from certain parts of the country, they will do well. So the exigencies of time and the need for him to win the election narrowed his choice to Shettima. It's not about whether it's the most competent or the best for the church, but then the most appropriate to enable him win this election. And he also went further to say that those championing Muslim ticket and badmouthing it were those who actually came to him to scheme to be his vice presidential candidate, and they lost out. And I think he was referring to the former SGF and, of course, the former Lawan and Dogara. So I think the dust is settling down. And now also it's an opportunity for him to meet with the leadership of CAN, especially, I mean, bearing in mind that there was a time that they said some bishops were actually rented. But I think we can see the faces of these leaders of ECAN now that they're actually genuine leaders of ECAN and not a rented crowd.
All right, so it has been often said that national integration in a country like Nigeria includes the emphasizing religion in politics and governance. Can we totally say that this has eluded Nigeria?
Well, first of all, let me talk about the meeting with CAN. I think that was an appropriate step. And I also think what CAN did by specifically asking and saying that we do not want anybody to sideline Christians, so to say, is also very important because of the role that religion has played in our politics over the years, which to me, back to your question, is not fostering national integration. For me, I think politicians just use religion to their own advantage at the expense of, Nigerians, sentimental Nigerians. Because when I look at people talking about religion, whether Christianity or Islam, look at the character of the individuals and look at the dictates or the requirements or the expectations of both religious beliefs. How much of that do you actually see in the character of these individuals that put up religion as the main or most important thing in our politics? But of course, we need to be balanced in whatever we do, and that is why I will not blame those who think that a Muslim ticket is not it. But of course, at the same time, for whoever wants to win, you also need to look beyond that. And I also want to add the fact that the poverty and the problems we are having in this country does not discriminate between religion. It's not as if you're a Muslim, you go to the market. If the economy is bad, it's not as if you will get something cheaper. And if you're a Christian, it's not as if you will get something cheaper. So I think what we should be emphasizing really is are things that bring us together. National integration, economic development. Those are the things we should be emphasizing. But unfortunately, religion is playing a very big role.
So, Majid, how and when did we get here? And are we ever going to get out of this religious, ethnic sensitivity when it comes to politics and governance?
Those who are pushing religious stuff are those who don't mean well for this country. Most of the best nations in the world, the nations with the highest GDPs, they didn't achieve that based on religion. Is China a religious country? Is America a religious country? The nations that are doing well, they de-emphasize religion. But we have, in Nigeria, we scheme to build the biggest mosques and the biggest churches at the expense of warehouses. Most warehouses have been converted to worship centers. But then the people perpetrating the evil in Nigeria, stealing money, they are either a Christian or a Muslim. So what are we talking about? And that's why to Ashiwaju, he said it very pointed, in a pointed, blankly manner. That's come. My wife is a deaconess with RCCG, with Redeem. If I cannot Islamize my home, how do I want to Islamize Nigeria? He said his choice of Shetima was to enable him win this election. And he has looked at the numbers, where the votes will come from. There are some people with, it has narrowed down the choice for him being a Southern Muslim. The option is like that of MK Abiola and Kingibe. That's the kind of scenario we found. Although the religious intolerance are so, it's much more than what we had during Hope 93. But then, if he needs to win this election, that's the best choice for him. And he's made it clear. And I'm happy that Khan is seeing reason, and they are telling him he must ensure religious neutrality if Nigerians decide to elect him president. And I love something that Atiku also said when he met with the Guild of Legislators yesterday. He specifically mentioned the lopsidedness in appointments going to the northern part of the country. He said so, and that he was going to correct that if he's elected president. Those are the kind of things we want to hear, especially coming from somebody who's of northern extraction and seeing that there is a lopsidedness in appointments in his own part of the country.
All right, thank you very much, Majid. I'll see your final take on this.
Yeah, I agree with everything that he said, and also the fact that look at Ashiwaju, for example. I think the most practical thing, the most practical example that he could give is that of his family, really. Because, I mean, if he's been married to a Christian and they've been known for years, and he could allow her to be a deaconess, then it means that his level of tolerance is probably above average. Yeah. And the fact that if you look at when he was governor also, he was the one that introduced this annual Thanksgiving in Lagos State Government House, and all of those things. That is why what you do before we count in future.
All right. Thank you very much, Olabisi, for your contribution at the program today. Thank you very much, Majid Jamiu, for coming on the show today. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for watching. That's all on Journalist Hangout today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11. Join us on Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. for Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.